Okay, so we're here with GoPro's 3D Hero system, which they are touting as the world's smallest 1080p 3D system. I can tell you it's pretty small. It's definitely one of the smallest 3D rigs I've ever used. We just got this in. We're going to check it out. We're going to run it through its paces a bit. First, I'm just going to go over it real quick. It's basically, yes, it is just a housing, really. That's all that the 3D Hero system is. It's a housing that utilizes their 1080p Hero cameras. So you get the housing. It's about $100, which in the 3D world is dirt cheap. That is about as accessible a 3D item as you're going to find. You do need to buy two cameras, so it's more than just $100. You're going to have to get two GoPros. You can get the standard HD 1080p Hero. You can get it in, I believe they make what they call their naked kit, which is just the camera, no real mounts. Or you can get things like the helmet kit where there's some mounts included. I believe this is about $250 retail, and I think this is around $290. So for about $40 more, you get a bunch of mounts that you probably use. I mean, if you use these kits, you're going to use a lot of the mountings. So you're going to get the 3D housing. And I know a bunch of you are going to say, well, couldn't I just rig up two cameras together? What you're really paying for and what you're really getting is the sync cable. The sync cable is kind of the heart and soul and the real secret in this system. Doing proper 3D and doing good quality 3D is all about syncing up two cameras. You need them not only to shutter together, you need them basically to be scanning their image processors at the same time, the chips at the same time. So the sync cable is the heart and soul of the system and really what's worth it. Plus, it's nice to have a properly built rig, and for $100, it'll save you a lot of heartache later. Okay, so I need to have two of the GoPro cameras. Here we go. Fairly easy, simple thing. I'm going to bust these out of their current cases. I do like these underwater housings. I usually keep them as totally sealed. They make some backs so you can put cables through. But usually you're using these in dirty environments, so I always recommend keeping the underwater housing intact. First thing you want to do on these cameras is take the two cameras that you have, turn them on. That's the front button there. And just make sure they're in the same mode. In this case, it's in video mode, that everything's set to the same thing. Although right now I don't have them in the same mode, so I'm going to change this one. And there's a little symbol on the top that does that. So I know if I have the camera on there, I'm in the camera mode. Got my two cameras. In this housing, it opens like a single housing, nice and easy. Now what you're going to do is your left camera actually goes in upside down. This is so that the lenses will be nice and close. So you're going to put the left camera in upside down, the right camera goes in right side up. Pretty easy. The sync cable has a nice indicator left and right on there, so it's really hard to mess this up. So I'm going to put the left on the left, the right on the right. Pretty easy. That's as simple a rig setup as I've ever seen. Close it, and there you go. You have the same controls. You've got your mode and on-off switches here, and a single shutter. So you're pressing the shutter on the right. Through the sync cable, it's going to tell the left to shutter as well. So it's going to start the cameras at the same exact time. And even if, I'm going to start it right here. So there we go. Even if the lights aren't flashing at the same time, it is actually synced up. At least that's what GoPro says, and we're going to test it out and make sure that's actually valid. So right now I'm taking a 3D clip of the crew. They're not a pretty sight, but hey, we work with what we got. Get Sandy in on the action over there. Okay, so I'm done with my shot there. When I'm done, I'm going to bust open the camera here. Now, I recommend labeling your SD cards left and right because you have two SD cards. I've got my left SD card here. So when I go to edit, I offload that, and that's my left signal. And then I offload this, and that's my right. It's two full HD 1080p 2D images that I'm going to later combine to make 3D. So even if you're not going to use this 3D, you can shoot in 3D and then have a nice 1080p image for both cameras. They're also really cool thing about this is that GoPro gives you a free download of a Cineform 3D program so that you can put this up, edit it together, and upload to things like YouTube. I know YouTube has a 3D channel, so you can take your footage and put it right up there. So all in all, fairly easy to use. For about $600 or so, you can have a full 3D rig and mount it almost anywhere. We're going to mount this on a motorcycle, so we're going to use some suction cup mounts. Boom. On a rig like this, I recommend two mounts. They give you 3 mounting points. I definitely recommend 2. Gives you a bit extra stability. And also, in case one fails, too hot or too cold, suction cups are kind of iffy in the weather, in extreme weathers. So I always recommend using 2 on a car mount. Well, let's go give this a try out. Otherwise, looks like a pretty cool rig. All right, so we're back here with the 3D GoPro Hero package here, this little 3D rig from GoPro. And we went outside, tested it on a motorcycle, had a lot of fun with it, and we learned quite a few things. All right, this is the main reason we do this. We always test gear before we use it with a real live client project. And we learned our lesson a couple times at a few spots. First thing we learned was we forgot to change the default mode here. On the back, you'll see that it lists the different resolutions. And these cameras default on mode 4, which is 960p, which is sort of their 30 frames per second super wide. And we actually wanted to use 1080p, so we forgot to change it. I'm going to show you real quick how to do that. So on these particular units, you want to go through your modes until you get to where it says set. And once you do that, press this once, and then you can scroll through until you see R and then a number. The R and then a number is your mode. Right now it's 4. Click it once. Now it's in 5. There we go. So now I've got both of them. Mode 5 on video. That's 1080p. That was our first mistake. All right. A few of the other things that we learned also were that we had expected to use the suction cup mounts. When we scouted the vehicle, which was a motorcycle that had a lot of smooth surfaces, we thought we were going to use these. Turns out a lot of the smooth surfaces were either in positions that it really didn't work to use the suction cup mounts, or the surface itself vibrated way too much when the motorcycle was operating. That it really wasn't a good idea. Luckily, we had a lot of other mounting options. In the front, we ended up using some of these pipe clamps. The larger ones had a bit more flex, so they weren't as useful as some of the tighter, smaller ones, mainly because these units are almost twice the weight. I mean, it's 2 cameras, it's a larger housing, so some of the mounts that were built for just the single GoPro, they work great with just a single mount, but when you put on one of the larger rigs, they do have a bit more flex, they're harder to tighten down in position. The rig does tend to get in the way a little bit. So hopefully GoPro will come up with a few more rigging options. I mean, they have a ton of them already. Or if you're like us, you might just do 2 mounting points. That'll be very helpful if you do double it up. Then the extra weight won't be as much of a factor. Another thing, we did not use the adhesive mounts, mainly because it was really hot out. We were worried about them staying, as well as the fact that all the equipment we were using was kind of expensive. We didn't want to mar it or leave any marks. So we used quite a few strap mounts. They worked probably the best because they have a bit of this sort of rubber protective padding, and then you strap it to the areas that are pretty strong. Worked out really well in many of the spots. On the helmet mount, that worked out fairly well, except because the rig, again, it was heavier, we had a bit more flex than we expected. So on a few of the helmet mounts, it did tend to wobble a bit or shift. But overall, the helmet mount was pretty good. We might have thought of maybe using 2 of them to get the double mounting points, give it a bit more strength. Probably the best mount for this particular purpose was the chesty mount, the one that straps to your chest. When we mounted it close, it was pretty rock solid on both the front and back. So we did going towards where he's driving, and then also the sort of rear view. Got some cool shots. We'll review those. You'll be able to see those when we post the video. We did notice in the helmet mount when it moved a bit, it actually knocked out the sync cable in one of the shots. So the shot started in sync. When the cable got knocked out, one camera was still rolling properly, the other one kind of jittered. So we lost probably a half to a quarter of the end of one of our shots because the sync cable got knocked out due to vibration or some sort of bounce in the road. Overall, it performed really well. We learned that we need a lot of parts, keep lots of parts, a couple of bags of parts. Very helpful. On the offload, when we ingested the footage, we used the software that they provided, which was the GoPro Cineform package, which is sort of a bare bones version of Cineform's 3D package. Works fairly well. You have to be mindful of a few things like you can't change the folder structure. If you want to be able to review this footage and use it, you should keep it in the folder structure. It ingests that, otherwise it kind of loses its way. You can look at it in a bunch of modes. This is side by side, which is kind of cool. Not always the best for editing sometimes. Probably another method you want to use is you can put it in the anaglyph mode, which is the different colors. GoPro is nice enough to include a couple of the glasses, so you can set it to anaglyph, which is sort of the red and blue, and then view your footage and kind of edit it real quick. Overall, the post side so far, we've been working pretty well with it. It seems to be working fairly well. We're using Final Cut and this package, and we're doing our edits. We'll post the full footage and take a look at it. Had a lot of fun. It was during a heat wave, so there's only so much we could have gotten done in that short period of time. Our driver was overheating, thanks to him for being a good sport. And fairly good package. Well, you guys can take a look at it.